Hey, what's up guys? As most of you guys are aware, update 2.7 dropped the other day, and along with it came with the Weapon Refinery update. This update includes new weapons for Nephenee, Katarina, Titania, and a sub upgrade or weapon evolution for Eldigan. In this video, I'm going to go over these weapons, share my opinion, and share some simple build ideas for each of these weapons. This review is going to be more brief compared to the previous ones I've done because honestly, these weapons are pretty straightforward and bland. I think most of you guys would agree. I'm going to start with Eldigan's weapon since it's just a sub upgrade. His new toy is Dark Mistletoe. It's not anything new since Ares has this weapon by default. We all were expecting Eldigan to get it one day, we just didn't know when. Well, he finally got it, and this is a very strong weapon. It accelerates special cooldown by 1, just like slaying weapons, and if the special triggers before or during combat, then the special is reduced by 2 after combat. So if you guys are familiar with Ares, you know that he can do a lot of cool stuff and fun builds that only he can do because of Dark Mistletoe. There's the 3-charge special Vantage build where he'll endlessly activate 3-charge specials with Vantage on enemy phase. Then there's also the AoE special builds, which is similar to the other build except that it's strictly used on player phase. Eldigan with Dark Mistletoe can run those exact same 2 builds except that he doesn't perform as well as Ares. Ares just has a better stat line suited for those builds, so if you have both Ares and Eldigan, then I wouldn't waste any Divine Dew to upgrade his weapon to Dark Mistletoe. However, if you don't have Ares, then I think it would be fine to upgrade. The question is it better than the Fury Refined Mistletoe? I personally think it is. Special reducing effects are much more powerful than a chunk of stats in my opinion. Both these weapons are great and has their own little niche, but if I had to pick between the two for a newly summoned Eldigan, then like I said, I would go with Dark Mistletoe. Not only do I think the effect is better, but it's just a much more fun weapon to use, and it also costs 50 less Divine Dew. Next is Katarina and her new tome called Reese's Tome. When it's refined, it has the Owl Tome effect, and it also has Speed Resistance Ploy 2. Pretty boring effect, but it is a good weapon for her. Speed and Resistance Ploy is a really nice combination of ploys for a magical based team and more importantly for herself. It's going to help her double more enemies and deal more damage, and with the sudden power creep and rise in speed in all these new units, speed debuffing effects are always useful for any type of team out there. Also, her stat line isn't as good as it once was. 32 attack and 34 speed was one of the best offensive stat lines you could have on a red mage when she was first released. Nowadays it's just kind of meh. She really requires team buffs or debuffing skills to perform well versus top tier units, and this weapon gives her the best of both worlds. As for builds, as boring as it is, I think a simple Fury Desperation set works, especially if she has neutral resistance. If she has plus resistance IVs, then that's when I would start experimenting with bond skills. But for this build, it's for neutral resistance IVs. She only has 32 base res, which isn't that high. She will need the extra 3 res from Fury to utilize those ploys effectively. She comes with attack ploy 3 by default, so it's fine for her to keep that. It'll allow her to deploy in 3 different stats, and it'll improve her enemy phase tanking capabilities. The seal is up to you. She doesn't really need distant defense if she's only used for tanking green and certain red mages. Some seal options are defense ploy 3, maybe a tactic seal if you're running her on a mixed team, or even simple seals like speed plus 3 or res plus 3 could work. Like I said, I think it's a good weapon. It not only helps her tank and deal more damage on both phases, but she can also support the other units with deploy effects at the same time. I think it's worth the Divine Dew, but I wouldn't make it a priority unless you're a big Katarina fan. Next is Nephenee's Dauntless Lance. It's essentially a 16-mite slaying weapon that's effective against armored units. When upgraded, it gains an additional effect which says if foe initiates combat, grants speed and defense plus 4 during combat. There's a lot of great things to be said about this weapon. This is the ideal weapon for Nephenee. She's meant to be built with special reduction skills because of her stat line. Due to her mediocre attack stat, she needs to rely on special procs or an effective against tag to deal good damage to her foes, and this weapon gives her both, and on top of that, extra points in her 2 main stats. Let me show you a couple of her builds so you can see how good this weapon is for high tier arena. This build has Dauntless Lance, Bonfire, Steady Breath, Wrath, and Close Defense Seal. A pretty straightforward build. Bonfire starts at 2 cooldown, and when she gets attacked on enemy phase, she activates Bonfire on her first counterattack. That Bonfire activation is enough to take out a plus 10 Zelgius and even a plus 10 Harden in one shot, assuming that they do not have any buffs. If your Nephenee is plus 10 merged, then she can even start 1 round KOing green armor units including Hector's. Another build would be something like this: Aether with Quick Riposte Seal. Aether will start at 4 cooldown and she'll be able to activate Aether on her second counterattack. She's not going to be able to survive X armored units, but she can still be able to deal with the lance and sword ones. The main reason to run this set over the previous build is for that slight increase in arena points. Dauntless Lance is hands down the best weapon refinement in this update. Definitely worth a Divine Dew if you plan to heavily invest into a Nephenee. If you just have a Nephenee laying around that's only used for arena assault, then I would just get her the base Dauntless Lance without the Divine Dew refinement, just so she can be a decent red and blue armored unit killer. Last but not least is Titania and her Draconic Poleaxe. Now this refinement triggered a lot of people and I can definitely see why. It's just a very lazy weapon design, but it does make sense. It's basically just a 16 mine emerald axe with built-in res tactic. I was kind of surprised to not see an effective against cavalry tag on this weapon, considering that this is a poleaxe. It would have been great for her since she's kind of in the same boat as Nephenee in regards to having lowish attack and being reliant on specials or an effective against weapon in order to deal good damage. But worse, because not only does Titania have low attack, but she can't use special reduction skills like Steady Breath and Wrath, so that puts her into a very limited niche role. With Draconic Poleaxe, she basically becomes a blue only killer, which isn't that different to how she was before with Emerald Axe. The only difference is now is that she packs a little bit more oomph because of the 4 extra might, and she's able to run one more supportive skill with her builds since Res Tactic is built into her weapon. So for builds, I have a couple for her. The first one has Iceberg, Distant Counter, Guard, Defense Tactic, and Quick Riposte Seal. This is an enemy face set that covers everything blue mages, dragons, and lance units. Guard is there to slow down the enemy's special charging rate, so she's mostly only getting hit by normal attacks. And with her okay bulk and gem weapon, she should be able to withstand at most 2 strong blues before going down, and even more, especially if you can start utilizing defensive tiles correctly. Second build is for plush resistance Titanias. It's a standard Fury Desperation set with defense and the upcoming Speed Ploy Seal. Use her versus a favorable matchup first so she can get into desperation range and basically just ploy and try to kill units afterwards. It's as simple as that. Her weapon is kind of underwhelming in regards to design, but a legendary gem weapon does make sense for her considering her mediocre stat line. But is it really worth the Divine Dew just for 4 extra might and a res tactic effect? I don't really think so. I think this is for sure the worst upgrade in this update. Alright, so let's do a quick recap of whether these weapons are worth the Divine Dew. Eldigan's Dark Mistletoe, yes. Katarina's Reese's Tome, yes, but should not be a priority. Nephenee's Dauntless Lance, definite yes. And Titania's Draconic Poleaxe, no. Now, I want to know what are your opinions on these weapons. Let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me on Twitter or in my Discord. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Take it easy, and I'll see you guys in the next video.